Jenny Ervine, the co-founder of Race Ventures, an experienced early-stage investor and advisor with a passion for marketing and business strategy. Jenny is a force of nature in the early-stage tech sector and is the ultimate go-to person for building foundations that last with investors and customers so they can grow and scale. Not only that, but Jenny has a story that will inspire any entrepreneur to get out of bed every morning to make their dreams come true. This is the Mary Poppins of Startups podcast, the Angel Investor series. And, well, let the show begin.
Many startups or many founders lay in bed and they dream about these exits or unicorn or exit or however you want to talk about that. Yet it always starts with the early stage. Some are quite good at knowing, especially if it's not their first gig, they know where to start and what to do at the beginning. Others completely they have no idea. Even something like trademark or registering a company can be very, very scary or daunting to them. So how can Raise Ventures really help companies if they, as startup founders, if they are at the very early stage of their startup?
So the primarily objective of our program is to really sit down with the startups and say, right, what stage are you at right now? Have you completed or still working on your technical build? Have you got an MVP? Have you got customers, and where are you going to take this company? And we kind of run through a bit of an 8-week sprint on the knowledge and expertise that you need to step up from industry founder, technical founder, and CEO. And we look at quite a lot of things in 8 weeks, but the idea is that you've got the knowledge and expertise to expand your business and build the best business foundations. So we look at the business canvas, which encompasses everything for your company, your product, the market opportunity, the business model, and why you're different, and really honing in on that piece, right down to what is the product, what is the tech stack, and what are you building, and thinking about how you're going to sell it, who is your ideal customer, how you're going to market it, and those are kind of the key business foundations. But the interesting thing that what we do with our program is layering on top of that the investor conversation. So you may have challenges moving from an operator, an industry and technical, into CEO, but you also have challenges working through the investor terminology and working through what is a cap table, what is a term sheet, how do you pitch to investors, how do you connect with investors, how do you keep those conversations going. So we do quite a lot on just making sure that they are ready in terms of dealing with those conversations. They know how to pitch, they know how to present their business opportunity, they can show the vision in 5 years and the scalability and how an investment now can potentially make a large return in the future. So we get them to think about 6 months from today, what do they want to achieve, but also 5 years time, what do they want their business to look at. So we bring in quite a lot of elements to our program, and the idea is to upskill the founders and upskill the business to be investor ready and put their best foot forward. And it can take a period of time. The 8 weeks is front loaded, then it goes on into a 6 month. Let's sit with those companies on an individual basis, because they're all slightly different industries and slightly different kind of go-to-market opportunities, B2B, large corporates or small ticket size, and they all have slightly different needs. So we work with them to kind of extend out that knowledge, get prepared, get all the documents that they need, and essentially looking to create a data room. So they've got all the different elements of due diligence ready for when investors come and ask the question. So we're working with our cohort at the moment. They've finished maybe their 8 weeks. We've done another 4 or 5 weeks of bespoke workshops with them. We did a bit of a showcase, and now they're starting to have conversations with some investors, and investors are saying to them, right, we want to, if it's interesting, we want to get into due diligence. And they're like, oh, what's due diligence? I'm like, it's okay. If you've done all things that we've talked about, got all your business plan, your business canvas, your go-to-market, your financial projections, your tech stack, your team, your product, everything in one place, that's all they're asking. They just want to sense check what you say is true in your pitch and that there's substance and there's nothing unusual or untoward going on and that the market opportunity is there. So the program puts the founder in the best position to get investor ready. And it's a journey. We say we're with the startups for essentially 6 months, but quite often the alumni would come back and just ask questions and say, right, well, we've got to this stage and we're doing this now, what do you think? And that's really valuable for the new cohort, because they can see the journey that they've been on and ask questions, and they can all talk to each other, and it's maybe not such a lonely world as well. So the community aspect of what we do alongside the program is really valuable. And then I guess the third piece is the connections. So one of the things we've been doing is working with the likes of even you, Neely, as a kind of product manager, and saying, look, is there expertise there that we can bring in from our other startups to the program to say, look, share knowledge, share learning, share the connections, and build your network early on. So I think that's really important, that we all bring connections to the table and kind of have our little pool of prepared suppliers or people that you can just go and have half an hour coffee with and ask a couple of questions. So it's kind of the program, the connections, and the support community piece is really what we do.
So it's very expensive compared to some of the other accelerators that I've seen out there. It really does the hand-holding piece that a lot of the startups are struggling with. And as you said, if I'm a startup today and I don't even know how to create a cap table, the idea of being able to go in there, think about those non-share agreements and all of that, and by the time I'm out on the other side, I have all of the information I can to go knocking on doors. But at the same time, you've already started doing that because you link them already with investors. So how many cohorts have you run so far at Raise Ventures?
It's a great question. So we've been going 3 years, and interestingly, we were aiming to do 2 a year, and we have done 6, which is over lockdown we were able to run more because it was pretty much virtual and everybody was online. So we ran kind of 3 in a row, and then we cut back down to 1 in a row as we monitored kind of the market opportunity and sense checking where scale-ups and startups were at following COVID, and we're still able to get really good quality startups. So kind of on our business model, 2 a year would be our appetite to work with 6 startups for 6 months in return for 6%, essentially board advisory, sweat equity, and shareholding within the company, and therefore it's in our interest to make each of the companies successful. And we only work with a small number of startups at a time because, as you said, it is very much bespoke, it is very much hand-holding, and we are kind of sitting beside them on this journey. So we've got actually 5 from this spring cohort working with for the next couple of months, and we'll open up now for over the summer for our autumn intake, and we'll do the same. We'll run the program education and knowledge and then work with 6 on a bespoke level. And it's really fascinating to kind of look back over the kind of economic changes and knowing that there's more economic change coming, that I think kind of tech startups are one of the few things that kind of ride out COVID, Brexit and recession. There's always going to be good ideas, and if they're in the right market with the right business, they're going to be successful. And times are challenging now, but there's still startup founders out there building some great solutions, and we're really looking forward to kind of what's going to come through the door next. And it's fantastic to see that the momentum hasn't stalled yet, and I don't think it will from the startup perspective.
No, and even when I was at the startup conference, a lot of people were talking about some of the challenges that startup might face in terms of raising as much in terms of investment as they used to before during this period. But I don't think that will stop in any way startups from just coming up with new ideas and continue to progress. If nothing else, it really encourages startups founders to think more creatively in terms of not just funding, but how can I quickly get to customers much quicker to have a product market fit, and also start getting revenue from customers. And again, it goes back to all of the things that we talked about when it comes to validating the idea, making sure that you are really tackling customers' problems, the onboarding, and all of the great things that you shared with us throughout this series.
Yeah, no, I think Yeah, I was going to say just on the startup and the investment piece, look, it doesn't matter in the economic system what's out there at the moment in the economic markets. There is an awful lot more startups in the kind of network, and I suppose what they need to do is be really good quality startups. Investors don't have a lot of time. They kind of have a feel for what's good and what's good, not good now compared to maybe 10 years ago, and they don't have to leave their desks to look for deals. 10 years ago we had to go to our local kind of pitching event to find startups, whereas you've got platforms, you've got networks all online that you can receive deals in your inbox. So the quantity of startups has gone up, no matter what's happening in the economic markets. But I think the quality needs to improve, and that's where the likes of programs can really help. And I think that's kind of, investors are looking for good quality startups.
I really agree with you. I've spoke to a few startup founders that were a bit wary of joining accelerators because they say by joining an accelerator, you might end up with a board member and then taking equity from you. And my counter argument has always been, well, first of all, do your homework. And do your homework, really gets to know who are behind the accelerators, what the programs are, how extensive they are. Usually, the reason why I like the depth of things that you cover with Res Ventures, and also what kind of network that you will have access to. And the second one for me is a simple question. You can keep 100% of nothing, or you can share with someone who will bring huge amounts to you and get you ready much quicker than you would if you were doing it on your own. So I think that's something I think it's more like a mindset, especially for first-time founders who might not understand really well what they actually mean to run a company and believe that they can just get through all of the investment rounds, keeping as much of the 100% as possible. But I guess, if you really want to look for an accelerator or even an incubator, then really think about who you are partnering with, because there are so many great programs that can help you out there.
Yeah, no, it's exciting times, and we're seeing a lot more kind of open source learning. I'm sure you've seen it as well, in terms of startups can kind of teach themselves, which is great, but also I think that needs to be layered upon that support and accountability piece as well. Yeah. So you can fast forward yourself with additional, continuous learning, but also then just bringing that to an external, provider, sense checking it with a half-hour coffee. There's lots of support out there, and our program is fantastic, but we're also happy to have a half-an-hour coffee and just sense check where you are as well. I think that's the kind of support that needs to be out there to allow a lot more startups to succeed.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I'm sure a lot of people are probably wondering, as I've been wondering, Jenny, is what gets you out of bed at night, in the morning? What gets you out of bed in the morning? The reason why I'm asking that is, of course, I've been following you for a long time, and every time from my own perspective of working a lot with startups, sometimes the closer we are to the founders, the more we do absorb some of the stress and anxiety and the problems that they are having. They become ours, and we share that because, as you said, we are here to help them succeed. And of course, the more startups that you work with, and as part of the accelerator and your own the angel investment that you do, the more of those that you have been carrying over the years. But you're still there and you're still doing that. So what gets you out of bed in the morning?
I think coming from that commercial background and seeing my kind of marketing commercial background was seeing the ideas and businesses we were working with, even creating logos, creating websites, and actually going out to market. That was kind of the marketing background, and then layering that to the startups where they're building products and taking it to market and celebrating the small wins. So we do quite a lot of work in celebrating small wins. Yes, it can be very stressful and very long journey, but you need to be celebrating, right? We had this really good conversation, or we met this really cool person, or we won an award, or we got a conversation with an investor. It's really important to be celebrating those small wins. So that's kind of what gets you up on a Monday morning, is A, the variety of the different startups, but B, learning from all those different startups and being able to share that knowledge is really interesting. And then also kind of just celebrating the small wins. I totally get what you're saying in terms of the stresses and challenges that they're coming on board, but actually sharing those is important as well, saying to the other startups, look, you're not the only one going through these challenges of higher costs or not being able to find talent. Other people are finding that too, and it makes them feel not so bad. Yes, they still have the problem, but they can share the problem. So celebrating the small wins and sharing the problem is kind of probably what gets me out of bed.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, sharing the small wins. In fact, entrepreneurs are the kind of people that once they've done something, is check, move on. And sometimes you forget that on the way to your first check, you had to do so many things. And even something as simple as registering a company, creating your first agreement, are small milestones to celebrate, let alone when you start getting more clients and all of that. It's such a beautiful mission that you have.
It's been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed today. It's been great to chat through all the different aspects of, startups, board members, investments, and, some of the work that you guys are doing, talking to lots of different startups. You can see so many similarities. So hopefully we can collaborate and bring the conversations together and help even more startups.
Yes, that's for sure. And it was lovely chatting to you, Jenny. And for anyone who wants to find out more about Raise Ventures, we will put the information in our in the show notes.